shit, I've shared too much, I've overshared.
Hello and welcome to High Sobriety Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Busbridge, and today we have a performance coach, a celebrity therapist, and Britain's next top model, Tanner. How's it going, mate?
You all right?
My hands are sweaty.
I make you nervous.
You do a little bit. That's why my legs are crossed.
We're going to go in.
Guys, I get too excited.
We're going to go in.
We're going in.
We're going in. We're going in.
Tanner, tell everyone about yourself, what you do, just in case someone's been living underneath a rock and they don't know who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Tanner Hassan, and I've been a psychotherapist for quite a number of years now. Specialising in addiction, in particular substance use, alcohol, sex and porn. And I'm a performance coach. I work a lot with, I'm what we call an integrative therapist. What that means is I'm greedy. Yeah. I didn't want to just learn CBT or psychodynamic, I wanted to know it all. So it's kind of learning all different modalities, and then I do a lot of unconscious work I'm an unconscious mind therapist as well. And so I try to sort of learn as much. I believe as a therapist, it's like you've got a toolkit, and whatever you're presenting with the client, you've got to pull out, so you need the tools really. So that's kind of what I do. I also work for the NHS in mental health, and have done for about 4 years. I work with adults, and now I work for CAMS, which is Children and Adolescent Mental Health Service in Essex, which is really, really great. And so that's pretty much me in my day job at the moment.
Nice.
Private work. Sort of had a privilege of working with a lot of people in the public eye for therapy, because it's really hard if you're in the public eye. Like, who do you
turn to
without it leaking out, I guess, or wanting to keep it low down. But I've worked in private treatment for many years, and it was quite common to see people in the public eye and how you work with that. And I realised that I really wanted to help a lot more people in that area, because there's so much pressure and stress that held on to. So I just work with everyone really, and it's just a bonus. I get to work with all sorts of different clients from across the world, and
sure.
I've had clients in Saudi and clients in Switzerland, and it's just been. I think Zoom's been incredible for that. COVID lockdown was great for that, encouraged that new platform. So I worked in all those sort of areas, worked in community drug and alcohol, worked in private, worked in prisons, worked in Crown Court magistrate. So, I worked as a drug worker before that, and sort of did a lot of learning. And so I sort of progressed and went into the therapy world and then into leadership management. So I've been in leadership management for a number of years now, ops director at rehabs and operations within the NHS currently. And I can't just do one thing. I'm definitely ADHD in that regard, I like to do lots of different things, keep it fresh, and also had the privilege of working with some professional fighters, coaching them, which has been really great around their mindset. That's been really interesting as well. So that's pretty much who I am and what I do. But I'm a dad, I'm married, and I'm a taxi driver for my daughter these days. She's 8, and so that's pretty much me in a nutshell. What I'm about.
Did this sort of work with addiction, was this something that you worked on with the sobriety when you started getting sober, or was it something you was contemplating whilst you were still using?
No, that's a good point. I've been sober 17 years.
Wow.
In October I was 17 years, and I had no idea what I was going to do. I was working in the nightclub industry then. I've been a salesman, I've sold everything, I've done every job pretty much you can imagine. And then I have a really dry mouth because he gave me a soup coffee, and I feel like I'm off my nut. So I just want to put that out there. I keep thinking I'm foaming at the mouth, I'm conscious of coffee breath. Also, and we're very close to each other. I'm sweating now.
Right.
I feel like I'm being interrogated.
I'll keep my legs crossed as well.
Don't
want you getting too excited.
Okay, I'll calm down. And I'm calm again. Then. So, good point. So, I was working in the nightclub industry when I got sober, which is fucking hard work to do. To get sober and clean in that environment. But it's possible. And, I didn't stay, in that environment. And I came out there and I had no idea what to do. Everyone was I get married, having families, or proper jobs and cars and houses and that kind of stuff. And I was just like, what do I do? Still living at home with my parents. I was blessed really that I think they knew what was going to happen to me if if I didn't get the help, but they were frightened to let me go because they knew I'd probably end up in a crack house somewhere. That's kind of, they just knew that. But I toed the line and I said, okay, you know, and they gave me a place to stay, and I just felt like a child still, really, as an adult. I was 24 when I got clean and sober, and I just had no idea, and I started doing promo work. And I felt like a granddad, really. Everyone was doing, these are like out of work actors, like aspiring actors and models and, you know, designers.
Thespians.
Thespians as well, you know, they're just like, you know, a stopgap, so find what I really want to do. And I was like, sure. And I was like, this is my job. Like, this is what I do. Hello, so would you like to try this new, you know, kind of drink? And it was all like nose strips and those kind of stuff. And anyway, it was all promo companies, and one of them was the Talk to Frank campaign, drug and alcohol awareness campaign on a big Frank bus going around the whole country. So I went there and I thought maybe they were in recovery. So I sort of blew my anonymity and just sort of went, you know, told them my story, and the poor lady was crying, and this other guy was just like mouth open, and I was like, oh shit, I've shared too much, I've overshared, can't lock it down. And I just thought, I was the only one who turned up in a suit. Everyone was in like jeans, ripped jeans and hair, and just like, you know, sure. And I turned up in this like proper whistle. But that got me the job. She said that I'm old school. I like the fact he came in a suit. And
Which didn't know you had a court appearance.
You said you weren't going to go.
Sorry. Okay.
Sure, thanks for that. Okay, Editing. Editing. Marco got it? Marked. Cheers. So anyway, I started doing that. I just needed to get out of Southend. I needed to just see something else. And for 3 years I was on the road. You know, I was in Liverpool, Manchester, you know, Birmingham. I just went everywhere, and it was incredible. I met some amazing people and youth workers, and I wanted to learn more. I wanted to say, how do you do that? And in the end, the Home Office were asking me what I would suggest for the next tour. I mean, that was just mind-blowing. Like the Home Office, drug strategy, saying, what would you suggest for the next tour? And I'm like, do you want to know? They were like, yeah. I said, you need to take me on directly. And they were like, yeah, no problem. I was like, okay, great. And I said, you know, we need to make it more interactive. It's really boring. We're talking at them. These are young people, we can learn from them. So created these forums, created these kind of workshops, and it was just more interactive, really, and I just absolutely loved it for 3 years. Spoke to a lot of youth workers, and they really helped guide me. And so I went and applied for a local drug and alcohol service, and that's when it started, you know. And they gave me a shot. You know, I had no qualifications; all I had was my experience, and I didn't even do that well because I had a problem with it in the end. You know, so what do you do? But they really took a chance, and I was a project worker, you know, looking after the drop-in centres and answering the phones and referrals, looking after volunteers, and then became a drug worker. And it was over time I realised actually I want to do what the volunteer therapists do. How do you do that? And so I went to night school as well as working in the field, and it took me 4 years, and then worked my way through management, and just sort of kept them both going, really, the leadership stuff and the therapy stuff, and it was just incredible. Like, I didn't know that's what I was going to be doing. You know, I spent most of my life taking from people. You know, what do I get out of this relationship? And now I'm in a position where I'm giving to people. You know, working community drug and alcohol isn't money rewarding. It can be, but it isn't what you look for. It's, you know, it's that helping, and it's just so great to be part of somebody's solution, but it's very hard in those services because it's harm minimisation. So you have to get your stuff out of the way. I know abstinence is the way for me. I'm not saying that's what it is for John down the road. That's his call. All I can do is give him the information and see what he wants. And so I got to that point where I thought I really want to see what private does, because I worked in a lot of criminality element, you know, where addiction really takes you, where you're having to commit crime to fund the habit. What does people with money get you? I kind of wanted to learn it all, and so I went into private treatment, and actually there are some differences, sure, but there's great similarities, and what private really gets you is access to it now. That's why it's expensive right now, rather than jumping through the hoops. So it was incredible, really, and then I started to love it, and when I qualified as a therapist I loved it even more, and I've just been doing it ever since, really. And just I never thought that's what I'd be doing, you know. And I had ideas, you know. I was a musician, you know. I was signed twice, and it nearly happened, and it didn't happen, and the rejection, and you know, those kind of things. I was pursuing a career in the entertainment industry, and I've actually been to your place of work before when I was a teenager with my mate, and they were like, "You're too short," and I was like, "I'm not here to be I'm just here supporting my friend." I was thinking, wounded. Ego took a battering. It's like, don't you need 5'7"?
Are you okay being back in these surroundings?
I mean,
again? Is it like a flashback?
I feel triggered. Yeah. But you are.
Is that why your mouth's dry?
Yeah, that's why my mouth. Marco's been very helpful. But so. And I sort of had to let that go, and that was hard to let that go, because I felt that's all I wasn't an office guy. I felt like there's nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't
for you.
It wasn't, and I really didn't know what else I could offer. And so while I got clean, I went and did a presenters course at the London Academy with Peter Purvis and Sally Gray. That was really great, and I've just been unlucky. I think like they brought me in for a green screen. They said, "Look, we really want you on board." I was like, great. And then this company went bust, and I was like, and I couldn't get representation without experience, couldn't get experience without representation. And so it was like, okay, maybe, the therapy needs to be your career. And, I've had a chance to go on tour and perform like early recovery, working with Essex Police and Heart FM for Too Smart for Drugs, Knife Crime and Bullying roadshows, and performed with them. And so there's been moments still as I've gone and progressed with my recovery, that entertainment is still there. I mean, it's still in me, it hasn't gone. I'm creative as a person, it's just who I am. There's a few things, as we discussed, that I'm working on in the pipeline. And I think what's been helpful with that is actually having an opportunity to work with people in the public eye, because after that work is done, you get to know them, and then there's a bit of a rapport, and some of them said, "You know what, I need to connect you with this person. I think you'd be really good talking to this person." And that's not what I do it for, but it's been nice because you get to see the real me. I hid myself for so long, and this was an opportunity. Really, the life that I live now is to be my true authentic self, and if that resonates with people, that's going to happen, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
I hear you.
And I can tell the coffee's taken in. You've not even asked another question, and I'm just giving you everything.
I was going to say, but in terms of addiction, but like to me, like addiction obviously there's different outlooks in how people perceive addiction. How was your perception of addiction when you was taken to going sober? Like how did your views upon that? Because obviously they're sort of vastly different, or were they very similar? Do you know what I mean? Because I think when you're using your sort of my addiction sort of a comparison was, oh well, so and so's like doing it every single day, and I'm not that much of an addict because I'm okay. I'm only doing it twice a week.
Absolutely, totally agree. A genuine viewpoint. I felt I can't be an addict because I pay tax.
Yeah.
And that is genuine. I thought, I pay tax, man. I'm all right. I'm okay. Or I didn't drink every day, or I didn't sniff every day, or I didn't smoke every day. I'd do something every day. And there was that illusion that society's view of what an alcoholic is, a society's view of what an addict is. You're either that extreme on the park bench out of a brown paper bag, homeless, or you're pinning heroin in an alleyway, which is just not reality.
No, of course.
That can take people there, but that isn't the norm. It's not the reality all the time for a lot of people. So it was that society's view as well. And that's why I think it helps that more people in the public eye do talk about these things. So it brings that awareness, and I think that's an awareness that's out there now, and I think it's now probably the sex addiction and porn addiction that's now that what once upon a time the alcohol taboo subject, that's the new taboo subject, because they bring this into somehow they're confusing this with criminality, to suggest that to have a sex or porn addiction that you've forgotten the value of consent is ludicrous, it's ridiculous. I'm not saying that some offenders don't have an addiction, but there is no evidence that suggests there's a direct link. And we have to be very clear, they're two very different things. So we're learning all the time. And I think my view changed when I went to support groups and met people from all different backgrounds and realised, there was doctors, there was police, there was, ministers, there were vicars, there were, the average working man, on the building sites. It was a real melting pot of people. And it was the similarities that I was listening to, and really understood that, all right, I think like that. That's what I used to think. And I was thinking, wow, because I used to judge outwardly. I'd sit next to the person that was the best dressed and think it would rub off. Maybe I'll get well. And actually, they were really suffering, but they're thinking, if I look good outside, no one will know I'm suffering inside.
That's what I used to do.
Right.
I used to wear I went for a phase where I used to wear shirts and ties to work, and I used to dress very smart. And it was because I was probably hungover, or I had no sleep, or I was still fucked, and it was like exactly that. It was like a plumage to sort of take your attention away from actually how I was feeling, and it was like this fake mirage that I was sort of like putting out there of like, oh, Matt's all right, he's in good check, he looks fine.
Absolutely, it's amazing, isn't it, when you think about it, what you really think at that time, and you believe it, and it's real, so real that maybe it will rub off, maybe I am all right. It's that movie Human Traffic, when he looks into the mirror and he goes, no, I'm all right. And I always remember that scene, because that's what I used to do, try and convince myself all the time that I'm all right, and I just wasn't. I was suffering, so I would be the loudest person in the room. I would, I'm sure you're surprised by that.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, I know. It's so surprising. I'm really such an introvert. I kind of, to sort of mask really, but then I shut down. I kind of disappeared inward. And sometimes it's not the quiet person in your group that you need to look out for, it's the most vocal.
Yeah.
It just tells us anyone could be suffering, and I don't call them masks, I call them guises. We all have different disguises, different guises for different days for different people. And I had that. 1 minute I could be in Mayfair, the next minute I could be in Homan, the next minute I could be
like a social comedian.
Absolutely, but that was really because I was lost. I'll be whoever you want me to be. I didn't know who I was. So although that got me out of some sticky situations and helped in some ways, it was really sad because it was saying I didn't know who I was. And that somehow me being my true authentic self wasn't enough. But then I felt, who am I anyway? So much rejection over the years that it just reinforced that negative belief about myself, that maybe I am to be rejected, maybe I am not to be loved, maybe, and I used to call myself a stupid, see you next Tuesday all the time, you say that enough, you believe that, right? So my view of addiction changed through that journey, for sure, to answer your original question. And my understanding of it now really is to keep it simple, which is it's the overriding obsessive thought to change the way that I feel. That's it in a nutshell. It's that pain, it's that, we'll talk about the why. I love Gabor Mate anyway, he speaks my language in the sense that I love what he's about, and he just articulates it in such a beautiful way. And for years we've always been working, especially in rehabs, it's not just your why, what are you masking? What is the pain? What's in the centre that you feel that coping mechanism is to drink and to use? It is destructive on paper and you know that it's killing you, but yet you still feel compelled to do that. Well, that is the overriding obsessive thought to change the way you feel, because something is painful is going on. What is that? Let's get to that root, let's get to that centre. And that can't be done while you're drinking and using.
But also it's kind of that case of, I feel even when I'm watching a lot of stuff online, and like I say this before, it feels very much like there's like a wand that people think you get as soon as you go sober, and I'm like, until you get to that root cause of everything, it's okay stopping drinking, but you're just carrying that same shit with you, and you're not, do you know what I mean? And then it's like saying that it's sort of once an addict, always an addict, but if you're not concentrating your attention on sorting the root cause, you'll be addicted to something else, do you know what I mean? And whether it's healthy or unhealthy, do you know what I mean?
I agree with you, and I used to label myself. I don't label that anymore. Because I think a new association level, if you say, I'm only this, it's almost taking that away. I'm just an addict. It's important to qualify what you suffer with in certain, let's talk about cancer. Someone who's got cancer, do you think they go around walking around telling everyone, hi, I'm Julie, I have cancer. I'm Dave, I've got cancer. You don't need to be keeping that in the conversation. It's like, I'm wearing blue underwear. Does that matter? You don't need to know that. So I don't want to bring too much attention on that. It's important in those early days to qualify, to understand. But the more I've gone along this journey, if I keep saying that, I'm limiting my belief. I'm just an alcoholic. I'm just an addict. No, I'm a human being, and there's lots to me. And I made mistakes, and one of them was addiction. It gave me what I needed until it took from me. And until I stopped that, now I can live free and live clean and move forward. I'm not going to then put that lid back on and say, but I'm an addict. I'm aware that I have an addictive personality. If I have a good bit of pizza, I want that fucking pizza the next day. DVDs, shirts, trainers, I went for the whole lot, right? But I give myself a bit of slack these days. Early days, it's important, I understand that. And there's a lot of people right now on social media that are early days recovery, so they're talking about this sort of stuff. But what I've learned is really important is to change.
Yeah.
And we have to be careful now, and I'm going to sound a bit preachy, and I apologise if I do, but I think it's important because I've been around a long time. 17 years of recovery, I still think, bloody hell, where's that time gone? And in that time, I've made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
I've learned about myself. I've become a productive member of society. I'm married today in a healthy relationship. I've got a daughter. It's amazing. So I get to see that, the alcohol-free market didn't really exist. There wasn't really many people in the public eye talking about it. Now there's so many podcasts and conversations, and I think somewhere along the line we have to be careful with responsibility now, because the whole point of recovery when I came around, the conversation was about smash the ego. It's about that unity, sticking together. It doesn't matter what you do for a living, what colour you are, what race you are, what religion you are, it's irrelevant. It's about what you want to do about your problem, how we can help together and work together. The more people in the public eye that talk about it, sometimes there are some that can look like they're on there's a clouty one going now, there's a splitting going on now, and there are early recovery, I've noticed. And if you don't change your behaviour, you're just not drinking, you're just not using. And it can be a bad advert, because then what happens is you run the risk of being disingenuous. You'll have so much pressure on yourself that I've got to give this to the world, because people are watching and following the journey, that if you then fuck up, you feel like you can't be honest about that. And I think I'm seeing a little bit, I know some, and it's well, I'm not telling people how they should live their life. But that's also what people do, I've noticed. Some people are telling you, I can't tell you how to live your life. I can't tell you how you should or shouldn't do. I can only tell you what works for me. But as a therapist, we'll work together what's working for you, what's not. Anyone that tells you what to do should fuck off. That's what I was always told, Just because you live in a certain way doesn't mean it's going to work for me.
For sure.
And I think the message is being blurred a little bit, and some are riding on that mental health tip and the clouty, and I think hopefully the viewer understands. But if you're vulnerable,
of course
you won't necessarily know. It's my argument with coaches. There's so many alcohol-free coaches now, but there isn't many great ones, that I've seen. There are some really good that have done the proper training, but there's no real regulation. Anyone can say they're a coach or a therapist, technically.
Put it on your Instagram and all that.
So, and I've had to repair a lot of damage from some of those people, but there are a few that I really rate. It does sound a bit preachy and a bit sour, but I can only share what I've seen over the years that I've been doing this, and I think it's important to say it. We investigate, choose wisely. Don't just go with whoever because they've been there or they've got the t-shirt. Really, really look at that. We have a responsibility, which is why I don't post every day. Whether I should or shouldn't be doing, I don't know. But I only post if I've got something to say.
It's more organic than I feel like. I feel like I sometimes fall in the trap, because most of the videos that I do, I always say it's from my journey. Like I'm like, this is what I did, or this is what I went through. Like I try to be as real, like sort of like documenting like how I'm getting on. But I don't want sobriety to completely depict who I am. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's the problem, because behind camera, like I can be quite a funny bloke. Do you know what I mean? And have a good conversation with people, and maybe borderline. But it's like I don't want it to become like Matt who's sober, and then before it was like Matt who just drank. Do you know what I mean? And now it's just, do you know what I mean? I think that's a really hard fine line to work with, and also it is that case of like I just read so much bullshit. Like I read one the other day where it's like, you'll start earning more money if you go sober. You might save a bit of money, but you don't just get a fucking promotion when you go sober. Like I just think, and I was so pissed off. And this person had like 80,000 followers, and it's just 80,000 people that now believe. Do you know what I mean? It's just,
this is my example. It gets watered down, but it's interpretation. It's how you interpret that. Yes, that is true. You probably are going to make more money when you're sober, because you're not spending it on certain. But then talk about yourself. Say, I learned that I've saved a lot of money because I drank 50 quid a day. Let's give the honest view, rather than the clickbait, the kind of riding. I guess I get resentful because I'm thinking I did the fucking grafting in the trenches when no fucker was supporting me really, because it was unknown. I had to go to these church halls for these support groups, and there was no real community outside of those people my age. And so I guess there is a bit of resentment when I look at it, in a sense that, I did it, I had some good education, I had some really good people around me that really helped me, and I just don't want that to be diluted in the way it's going, because we are in a way of social media and that presence and that, I get it. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say. I think hopefully my point's come across.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a fine line between what's entertainment and get me some more hits and likes and whatnot, and what's actually the reality and the truth. I've seen stuff that it's like, saw a real one, someone the bottle of cap was off their bottle of water, and they were like, "Oh, it reminds me of when I was drinking." It was just always like, I was like, "How have you turned that into?"
I took it down, mate. All right, you don't have to bring it up.
Marco took it down. To be honest, Marco took it down.
Marco took it down.
And, I wrote to him, "This is very unacceptable." And but that's fine. In fact, it's content, isn't it? I get it. I guess I'm at that age where I'm still trying to learn how that works, but it's not in line with my values and beliefs, and that's fine. That's really what it is. And if it floats your boat, it floats your boat. I'm more interested about the reality, the authenticity. Talk about how it works for you if that's what you're going to talk about. Don't tell everyone your fucking top tips of what you should be doing. Therapeutic views are different. That's different. But again, raise the vibration. If I'm going to sit there and go, so anxiety, there are 5 points you need to raise about anxiety. I'm fucking already anxious. I'm just like, mate, what are you talking about? Let's get to it. We already know about anxiety. Most people do these days. Talk about solution. And that's what I'm finding is a lack of. Solution. Let's talk solution. But again, as some people in the field remind me, it's about getting that hook. And I'm like, I don't want to use social media in that way. I don't want to play it that way. I'm blessed I don't have to use social media to get clients. It's not that way. I do that because I have something to say. And it's just my brand, if you like. But I definitely am getting old and becoming a granddad from that whole little rant there. Let's move on with that section.
I was going to say, in terms of like addiction as well, do you feel personally the government does enough to help in terms of like with alcohol, with drugs? Do you think there's more? Do you think there's things that could be done to prevent this, or more help out there?
That's a good question.
Like, they don't have to go too deep, but I just feel in terms of like, alcohol use or drug use, there could be sort of implications that are put in that can help prevent this, or it could be, I don't know, you tell me.
No, good point. I mean, I've been out of the community drug and alcohol for a while. When I was in it, when I first started in it, if you was a client and you'd come to a community drug and alcohol service, which is free, it's funded by the government with the charity, you could have like shiatsu, ear acupuncture, aromatherapy, group therapy, lots of different things that you could have in your package. And I just watched that dwindle, that pull away, because the funding was cut. And back in the day, they used to put drug money in a different pot to alcohol money because they believed that for some reason they put drug money with criminality, because obviously people who drink alcohol don't commit crime. Obviously, that's their rationale, right? But then what I've learned is when it starts affecting the certain people at the top, suddenly those services become available. For example, don't quote me, these aren't particular cases, but let's say someone very high up in the government, they look at the prison service and they don't really do anything, and suddenly the daughter of said person is suddenly in prison for committing crime and crack use and whatnot. Well, we really need to do something about that drug problem in the prisons. Yes, and suddenly it's in there. Sadly, it's the who you know aspect, isn't it? And that, to get things going. And that happened for a while, and then you start to see sort of certain support groups in those prison services. But I've met some amazing people that work in that area that are really passionate about that and pitch it to the services and get that funding in. I've seen people work tirelessly to pull in that funding, but I think the government has reduced. Look at moving, coming out of the European Union. One of the pros they were saying was something like millions are going to come back each day or each week. We're going to get back and we'll be ploughed into therapy services and NHS. It never happened, never materialised, right? So I'm out of the loop of that at the moment, but I think what I found is that the community services were strained, and working in private, I found a lot of people's families were scrimping and scraping to get their loved one into private treatment, to get them access now, because the hoops were so big, and it was really hard to get into panel and get that that therapy.
It's quite elitist, isn't it, sometimes, in terms of not being able to afford to go to a rehab in Thailand, or like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, right. And years ago, people used to do like a year in treatment, 6 months to a year. But we're such a hard-fast country that most people can't get that opportunity to be away. So the 28-day program was introduced, 6 weeks. People would use their annual leave, so their employers wouldn't know. They've used up their toil and annual leave, and off they go to treatment and get themselves sorted, and off they go again. But then some use their insurances, and that's all above board. And a lot more employees, I think, in their HR departments, I think we're cottoning on in that regard. In the corporate world, I think we're catching on in terms of how we can support. But in terms of government, I've definitely seen slashing everywhere. You've got councils going bankrupt at the moment. So I definitely think there's been a reduction, and I definitely think there's been a certain focus on certain substances more than others over the years, and that's changed. And we need to talk about all of it, but I don't know how that works, but there are some subjects that need talking about that never get covered. I mean, I won't name the organisation, they're great. But years ago they were talking about statistics for hepatitis C. Now their statistics are based on they would call it problematic drug use. Now problematic drug use is whatever you want it to be, but problematic drug use was classed as needles. If you're using needles, that's problematic. It's all problematic if it's problematic for the person. So their statistics were based on hepatitis C for a bloodborne virus, based on injectors. And I was like, but how many people are using cocaine and using banknotes in this country? Those statistics are not correct. And I pretty much argued with them, and they wouldn't believe it. And then I self-disclosed and said, look, I had hepatitis C. I'd never used a needle in my life. I was just very lucky that at 4 years sober, I learned I had hepatitis C. 4 years sober, my liver was borderline. And that was from banknotes. The first time you use a banknote, it bursts open the capillaries in your nose. The second time you go and use, that's when you're at risk of infection.
Jesus.
And hepatitis C can survive on dry blood up to 3 months outside of the body, whereas HIV dies outside of the body instantly. So hepatitis C, I guarantee the statistics are way...
That's fucked.
It's mad.
Mad though, I would just share a note with a random fucking person, and in a toilet.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? Like, just not give a fuck. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, at that time, I don't know, just all your common sort of conceptions of like what's cleanliness and what isn't. It's just like, don't worry about it, just whack them up. It's
just all things like that, and then you need treatment like interferon, but I was fortunate I didn't need to. I was in like a 1%, or I think maybe 5% that the liver produced, the body produced the antibodies. So I still now have to have that shaming conversation every time I have a blood test, or if I had an operation, I had my gallbladder removed because my diet wasn't great, and that was the first question. Miss Hassan, do you? No, I don't drink. Are you sure? No, I definitely don't drink. Do you? No, you need to look at this level or that level of the ALT and the this and the that, because the liver specialist taught me, and they were like, all right. And it brings me back to shame sometimes. I think, well, that's the consequences of my actions. I abused my body, and I was fortunate that I didn't need certain treatment because it can be quite uncomfortable. But I got to live with that. I'm not infectious. I don't have the infection. I've got scarring on my liver that says, oh, you have had it, but you've got antibodies, you don't have it anymore. And I can't pass it on. So it doesn't exist. But for a while, I felt dirty. I felt like, oh my God, like what? It really messed with me. And those statistics, it's mad, isn't it?
So
because
mad.
Cocaine is
everywhere. Well, there was one time they said it was in the water systems, wasn't it? In London, there was traces of it in like the shower water and stuff like that. Crazy.
Years ago,
I was like this. That's me having a shower, by the way. No,
I hope not chloroform. But I mean, look, they did tests on banknotes, and I think it was like 70% of banknotes or 80% of banknotes had traces of cocaine on it, and I think 60% of those had hepatitis C. I mean, don't quote me on the numbers. This was years ago. I learned this, but I've forgotten. I wonder if we did that now, what it would be like, and who could do that test. I think there's a lot. And so hepatitis C, like I said, survives. So here's the embarrassing bodies moment. It survives on dry blood outside of the body up to 3 months. So, harm minimisation, don't use a banknote, but these are the things that I didn't know. And I learned.
It kind of does feel like it's very, like social hierarchy. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's cocaine's, if it's done by the upper, it's seen like fabulous and classy and stuff like that. But to the everyday working class man, like all these sort of problems amount. And obviously, if there's not the facilities to help them to get over and to recovery from this, then it's like a constant revolving door.
Yeah, I think it's
with people with depression, with do you know what I mean? It's continual because there's not enough help. And like you said, if there's 28-day programs, sometimes that's not long enough. Do you know what I mean?
No. I mean, rehab to me isn't recovery. Rehab is stop, pause, break. Let's contain your ass. Let's work through the stuff. Let you land, and then recovery is really when you go out back into your community. Because if you have a lot of structure and discipline in the rehabs, which they do, and you give that to a person who doesn't have structure and discipline. I didn't have any structure and discipline. You put them back in the community, they're going to lose it out because they've got no structure and discipline. So it's about learning and sort of refining what you've learned in rehab and carrying that out. If you do it in the community, I mean, I personally got sober and clean in the community. I didn't go to rehab, but I learned a lot. You know, I had to let a lot of stuff go. You know, what I thought I knew, I didn't know, and you know, the ego and the resentments and all of that, the icky stuff, you know, there's the selfishness, the self-centeredness, self-obsession. You know, I used to sit on trains and sit there and tense my arm and think because they can see, like, you know, they weren't even looking. It was just, it was low self-worth, low self-esteem, but a really big ego, which doesn't work, does it?
No,
you know?
not.
But that's kind of what I had. And, you know, so I've done a lot of learning over the years and I'm probably the best I've ever felt. You know, each year I say that because I still invest into my recovery. You don't just get clean and that's it. You got to keep. You know, our brain is designed to keep us alive. Happiness has to be built. So we have to build the happiness. We have to go and create the future that we want. And so whatever that looks like, you know, looking at your recovery, looking after yourself, being of service to others. You know, saying no when you need to say no rather than saying yes all the time. You know, really looking at yourself, keep looking back, you know, rather than doing that all the time, keep looking back. And that takes time before, you know, a day becomes another day, becomes another day. And so, yeah, that's just some of the stuff I've learned really over the years.
What would you say was like the biggest misconception when people go sober in terms of like how they feel, like, you know, obviously it's all individual journeys, but what was the biggest one that you found where people sort of like, oh, well, I thought it was going to be this way. Oh, I thought it was going to be that way. Oh, I thought it was going to be quicker than. Do you know what I mean?
I think a lot of people think they're going to be boring. And I certainly felt that.
Yeah, same.
But I think where it is good is that it's quite familiar for people to not drink. It's quite the norm now.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, you look at certain industries like money broking, financial kind of trade. It was like take the card out and drink, right? And now there's kind of like it does exist, but that's not the focus anymore. You know, to entertain clients all the time. You know, things have changed, and I think we've evolved a little bit in there. We've become a bit smart. People are looking more at their health nowadays, and so you don't have to try and hide. I think you don't have to be boring. You know, it's if all your life is associated around the pub and then you're not going to the pub anymore, then yes, you probably are going to feel like you're being boring because everyone is where you're at, but you will formulate different friendships and relationships, and if they're real friends, they'll stay with you forever. Yeah, my group of mates, there's only one or two that still call me and say, how are you? That really cared through that process, and so it's not their fault. You know, sometimes you realise that the drink and drugs actually formulated a relationship. Take away that, is the relationship really there? And for some, no. And for some, it's also a bit too triggering for them to make them look at themselves. So, no thanks. You know, you're not that bad, you're all right. You know, that kind of stuff. So boring, definitely. It's the association, isn't it? But again, I can go to weddings, I can go to social events, and I take the best bits and I leave. I always say this. This isn't a top tip, but this is something I found.
Top tip from Tanner.
Yes, Tanner's top tips. Tune in on Tuesday. All right. I always say set yourself time to leave.
Yeah.
And then review yourself at that time. It starts at 6, 8 o'clock, and review. How am I doing? Have a little check-in. How are you feeling? Enjoying yourself? Is having a small talk wearing you out? Do you feel uncomfortable or do you feel good? I feel good. All right, we'll review it in another hour. So you've got the choice. There's nothing worse than feeling like you're in the corner.
Yeah.
Because then you have more of a chance of being irrational, and pop in that bubble. Set yourself a time to leave. Stick to that plan. And so I still see some of my old mates sometimes at certain events. A lot of people have grown up and moved on now, and they're thriving and they're doing all right. But if I'm in those certain situations that I don't want to be there the whole of it, I'll go and take the best bits and I'll leave. You have that freedom of choice.
Yourself, isn't it, mate? That's the best thing, and that's something that I didn't do a lot of when I was drinking and taking drugs, because it's like I didn't want to.
Yeah.
And now that I can, that's why it's all such a weird process, because you're analysing a lot more, and I'm a lot more aware of a lot of stuff. My day-to-day, the people I know, the conversations I have, the work environment, I pick up on a lot more now. And it's like, do I want to be doing this? Do I feel comfortable in this situation? Am I okay? Do I need to be, do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't just sit there and ask myself, am I okay all the time? Rocking back and forth, like, you okay? That's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, but I've done that. Absolutely. Yeah. You're all right. Fucking hell, you're all right. You're all right. You're okay. Because you're people pleasing. I was people pleasing at that moment. I can understand that time. It's like, especially when you've got the people who will say, but I can't avoid that. I'm the best man, or I can't avoid this because I'm it's just, everyone's an individual. Really, really evaluate. Is it going to cause me harm to be in those environments? If I've never had a boxing lesson in my life, am I going to get in a ring and fight Mike Tyson? No, I'm going to go and train. And even then I might, but at least I'll have a better go than, more prepared. Yeah, so if you're giving up, being transformed into that environment, maybe it isn't going to be as good for you. Reevaluate. That's individual. Look at that on an individual basis, and question the motive. What is my reason now to be in a pub? Is it because I want to be normal and be like everybody else?
Yeah.
Probably not a good idea to be there. Is it because actually I'm meeting up some friends and we're going to do this, and the motive is different? That's fine. For a while, I couldn't go into pubs. The sticky bar, the smell, the carpet, I've become one of them intolerable.
Yeah. It can be triggering as well, though. Do you know what I mean? Because I'd only go to the pub to get fucked.
Right, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So why would I sit on a pub? Yeah. And now I've got used to doing it more now, where I can just go and I know I can just go home. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't bother me as much being in there, in that environment. Yeah. So, it's just, it's an individual thing. These are some of the things that I've learned, some of the gems that they've parted and given to me, some of these people that have tread before me and laid that path, if that makes sense. Yeah. How would you say you was with boundaries? Because in terms of with your job now, obviously being a therapist like this, I suppose you need to learn your boundaries with clients and your cut-offs, and when you go home and I imagine you take a lot on. And how was that in comparison to the boundaries of when you was drinking, and did you feel that you had boundaries then?
Very good question, actually, because I think that's evolved over the time. The longer, I think it comes with experience. So in my own life, I had no boundaries. I don't know what that is. Boundaries. I used to work in the nightclub industry. There's no boundaries. It's just, you don't have that kind of conversation. I didn't even know the word boundaries, and I kind of learned that over time. And I had no self-boundary. What is your self-boundary? What are you going to put up with? What are you going to accept? And I didn't know. The unacceptable become acceptable in the end. I didn't know how to, didn't know what was crossing boundaries. Or maybe I did know, but I didn't really care of the consequences. So perhaps I would cross those boundaries, but now there's more self-awareness, self-reflection, being able to really look at, spot check myself. I might say something and then think, oh shit, actually, that may have come across. So I'm really sorry about that. I didn't mean it that way. That's I wouldn't have done that before. I just wouldn't. So I learned a lot. What to have in my life, what's good for me. I always say, if they're good to you and good for you, keep them in your life. If you can't answer yes to those, they've got to go. Because I want people to dance in my light, not shine in my dark. Nice. That's what I want. And not people that just suck from you and take from you. People that aren't just going to celebrate with you, but when you're in the shit, they're there for you. They're sort of real. That's why I think most people can count real true friends on one hand.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's those quality relationships, and that's what part of the boundary. I didn't know that, but in the professional capacity, you harness that and you learn that even better. And definitely had clients where it would be on your mind. It would be pretty triggering. It might something similar in you, and you learn about transference and counter transference and all the jargon that comes with it, the therapeutic process, which is why it takes a time to study. But that's why you have supervision. So I have therapy, I have a clinical supervisor. Okay. So, I've got a place to share where that goes. But over time now, it's like an unconscious thing now. It's moved into the subconscious. It's like an automatic program. Yeah. You share what you share. It's completely confidential. When we leave the room, that's it. It's gone. I don't even think about it. Not in a cold way, but it doesn't go into my house.
Yeah, it belongs here, not there.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I'm a human being, and sometimes these things happen. And my wife might be really excited and up for doing something. I'll go, do you know what? I've had a pretty heavy day today. Do you mind if I just sort of take it a bit gentle? Or I might stop once I finish the session and might have like 20 minutes for a bit of meditation, a bit of processing, a bit of reflection, or checking on someone else. That's rare, but if I do get them real heavy ones, that might be triggering for me, or just I've done a lot that day. I'm a human being. I'm not a machine. We're all human beings. There's only so many people you can help, but you've got to have it in the tank. I'm that person. If I haven't got it in the tank, I'm not gonna.
Can't give it. Yeah.
You can't. You just. That's my self-boundary again. Yeah. The head wants to help everyone, but reality is actually, is it going to cost me more in the long run of my own values, my own beliefs, my own commitments? You have to really look at that. So it's that. I think I'm not going to say balance, because that sounds like you're on a tipping edge of something. I heard someone say a long time ago. It's more about that harmony. So sometimes it's going to be 60% work. Next week it might be 70%, 90%. You've got to...
Like portions.
You've got to review it. You've got to be loose with it. And I really just basically say, I live my life and my recovery like a loose garment, not a wetsuit.
Nice.
That's it in a nutshell. I used to be all tight, constricted, but now it's about the loose garment. Let it be, what will be, will be. It doesn't mean to say I'm just going to be floating around and not doing anything. It means I'm just going to stop putting that pressure on myself and that squeeze. And, we were talking earlier about how things might work with precision and timings. That used to trip me up. It wasn't the big elephant shit that would trip me up, it was the little mouse shit. That someone would go, what's the matter with you? It's fucking the end of the world. You know what I mean? Yeah. You learn over time. So that's what I've learned anyway.
And what advice would you give for anyone sort of watching this or listening to this, if they're looking to go sober, or if they are sober? Like what helped you when you was going through that transition?
If you are thinking about it, I would question, why are you thinking about it? What's the motive again? It's always about the motive. Is it because I actually feel that I have a problem with it, and that when I start I can't stop? Whether it be, or the excuse, well, it's just at the weekends, but you've created that association. Is it a problem for you to be thinking about it? I just don't think regular, normal folk, whatever normal is, thinks that way. You go, I'm not going to do that again, I'll be all right. No, it's okay, it's only this, and justify it, and then you're back in it again. I think, motive, question it, if you're thinking about it. But it might be for health reasons. It might necessarily mean that terminology that we talk about, an addict or an alcoholic. Some people can review the way they get caught in habitual cycles. Doesn't mean that they've got a massive serious problem. If someone's lost a loved one, I defy anyone. As human beings, we want to change the way we feel. We want to feel good all the time, don't we? Right? As human beings, we want to feel good all the time. Wouldn't it be lovely to have no shit, no wars, no nonsense, no horribleness in the world? It would be great. It would be brilliant. It's just not reality. And it's not the event that affects us, it's your interpretation to that event. And so the motive is really important of why you want to look at those changes. And it might just be, I've gone for a loss, I'm changing the way I feel, but I might need to keep that in check and eventually get some help and support. Then I realise I don't need that so much and I'm okay. That might be that person's experience. So it's really looking at that. It's not about how much, how little, how much you spend, it's not about that. It's really what you want to do. If you're already sober and you're struggling with it, I would say what you're struggling with, be specific. But start thinking about how you want it to be, because we focus a lot on what we don't want rather than what we do want. I don't want to go to work today, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. What you're doing to your brain, to your reticular activating system, you're putting that into your focus. So your brain's looking for information as to why you shouldn't be going to work. So, there's shit, bus income, he doesn't love you, you've lost your keys, you've done this, you've done... And it just makes you feel like a really shit day. It's really about getting the emotional intelligence in prior to the event. It's more of the unconscious work that I work with. And it's about looking at how you want it to be. Focus on what you want.
Yeah.
I don't think, I don't want to drink, I don't want to drink. I'm free. I'm really grateful to be free, and I'm going to be looking for that information that confirms that goal, and I'm going to go and do those things. There's a lot more to it. But these are the sort of mindset perspectives that I look at. So I would be specific of what you're actually struggling with, and go and get some outside help if you need it. It might be that you're able to make those changes by just evaluating your immediate circle. What is it you're struggling with? Is it that you're not getting any support, or you've got the support that isn't the right one for you, or is it that no one's in your life, or is it the fact that you've got too many people in your life? Have a look at that. It's not always just about the substance. Remember, that's the coping mechanism to what's really going on. And so if you've just got clean or got sober, you now need to find stuff to do, and you might not know. I had no idea. I couldn't even tell you what I liked, what music I liked, what food I liked anymore. It just was none. I had to learn all that again. So it's be gentle, take it easy. Easy does it, but don't overdo it. All that kind of cliche sayings that are out there. Absolutely. That's what I would say. So if you're new or you're thinking about it, it's about being specific. It's not tarring everyone with that same brush. Don't be afraid to home in. Don't be afraid to join groups. Look at self-help. You can read all that. Knowledge is knowledge, but it's the action. You've got to put the action in. Sure. And it might mean you have to let a few things go in your life. It might mean that you have to reevaluate certain relationships in your life, be it romantic relationships, be it friendships, certain jobs that you're doing. It's really being aware of those triggers, the pain that you're feeling, what you're trying to communicate to the world, and that's my view on it.
Mate.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Brilliant.
So at the end of each interview, we ask the guests what their zero hero is in terms of their non-alcoholic drink of choice. What is yours if you do have one?
As in an alcohol-free drink, or just a soft drink?
Either, mate.
Pineapple juice, I love pineapple juice.
Yeah?
Well, so every morning, small shot of pineapple juice, good for the immune system. Didn't help my eye, did it?
We wasn't going to mention that.
Yeah, no, but it's there now.
Everyone's zooming in like, what is that?
Humility, isn't it? It's keeping me humble. Still coming here. Tempted to cancel it, but I didn't. Well, actually, I was taught a long time ago that we should never have alcohol-free drinks.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And the perspective was because it's going to lead you to a drink. I don't think I have that belief now. I think it's about the motive. I understand it. What's your reason for doing it? Definitely could understand people going, well, I just want to stay undetected. If I've got an alcohol-free beer, I'll turn the label around. Maybe I'll just fit in and be normal. That's probably not a good look. And I never drank alcohol because I like the taste. I drank to get fucked.
Yeah.
So I tried alcohol-free wine. After 15 years clean, I tried alcohol-free wine. Hated it. And I'll tell you why I hated it. I felt triggered by it. It was the popping, the glugging, the holding, the pouring it. And I was just like, this is a bit weird. And then when I drank it, it tasted like shit because the brain's not expecting wine. And I was like, actually, no, this isn't for me. It might be for somebody, just not for me. So I poured it away, never did it. But alcohol-free beer, don't seem to have a problem with. Alcohol-free cider, summertime, I love Copperberg cider. That's what I like, strawberry and lime. Lots of ice, I've got a sweet tooth, as you can tell. The camera doesn't go that fast, that's good. Cut that bit out. Or a Peroni alcohol-free beer, but my relationship with it's a healthy one. It's not the substance is the problem, it's your relationship with it that makes somebody addicted to, and my relationship with it's a healthy one. I could go in and have a Coke or a glass of water, I don't have to have the beer. If you're in that place, you need to review, I would suggest reviewing that. But that would be my go-to if I went, which is an alcohol-free Peroni beer and a Copperberg cider.
Lovely. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Mate, thank you so much for coming on.
I'm never going to have a espresso again before I do it. I just felt like I'm not stopping yapping. That's all.
Little something in there as well.
But it was caffeine.
Back.
It's caffeine.
Exactly. But that was episode 3 for season 2. Like, share, follow, and I'll speak to you soon.